My name is John Roberts, and this is my theme presentation. So I decided to do my presentation on the theme of deception. Although it doesn't appear much throughout the semester in our readings, it piqued my interest and it caught my eye because of how it develops characters and their relationships, and how it can lead to many different things, such as leading to love and romance, or war and death. So the books I chose to represent deception are Much Ado About Nothing, The Conference of the Birds, and Song of Roland. And Much Ado About Nothing, you have an example of a double deception and a double romance, where on one hand, the deception is truly deceitful and meant to hurt someone, and it leads to the almost destruction of a romance. And then on the other hand, you have a more humorous and light-hearted deception where Don Pedro and Claudio and all the other characters utilize this deception to matchmake their friends. And although it can be viewed as bad, at the same time, it's in a very humorous manner, which is meant by Shakespeare, because his writing style is that of to make you think it's a tragedy with the deception of Claudio and Hero's relationship by Don John, but it ends up being a comedy because of the humorous side of the deception of Benedick and Beatrice. And the quotes I chose for this are, "If I can cross him any way, I bless myself every way." And this was a quote by Don John when discovering the relationship between Claudio and Hero. And it just shows his deceitfulness and mischief in trying to destroy this relationship. And then this quote is from Don Pedro, "If we can do this, Cupid is no longer an archer, his glory shall be ours, for we are the only love gods." And this is him basically saying that his deception will be able to matchmake the relationship that everyone thought was impossible. In The Conference of the Birds, you have a story of a man on a journey, and this man the sheik has committed his life to Islam, but he's deceived by a Christian girl who he falls in love with, and spends nights and days trying to get her attention. And she leads him on and deceives him by promising him her love, but she just keeps on forcing him to give up his religion and convert to Christianity and work for her. And this deception is emphasized by the context of the story, with this being during the Crusades or shortly after the Crusades, and the girl being Christian. The girl doing the deceiving is being Christian, so that's meant to emphasize the deception, the fact that she's Christian and she's deceiving a holy figure in Islam, someone who's devoted his entire life to Islam. So that just highlights how she has deceived him. But I will say, although it leads to the suffering of the sheik and eventually the death of the Christian girl, it also does lead to a form of romance between the two. And the quotes I chose for this are, "If you want this affair, you must wash faith from your hands. If you don't bow to your beloved and take on her shade, your love is nothing but smoke and sin." And this quote came from the Christian girl when telling the sheik what he must do to gain her love. And this just shows how she deceived him by forcing him to act inferior and do all these things for him, give up what he worked for his entire life just to gain her love. And the next quote is, "The devil has waylaid you, sheik. Your heart has been struck with the arrow of disgrace." And this comes from one of the sheik's followers, and he's telling him that he has given up all he has worked for and is acting like he has nothing to live for. And he's just saying that the devil has somehow gotten to you and led you astray from the righteous path. And the next story is Song of Roland. In this story, we see a much more violent and, how should I say it, more impactful form of betrayal and deception, as Ganelon, who is a part of King Charlemagne's army, a count at that, he deceives Charlemagne and Roland and all the other counts by turning to the side of the Saracens and attacking Roland. And this just is, yet again, is emphasized by the context of this being during the Crusades, and the fact that Ganelon is leaving the Christian side to go and attacking the Christian side with the Muslim side of the armies of Saracens. It just emphasizes the deception that the author is trying to prove and get across to the reader. And my quotes are, "The counts are dead men if my words are believed, and Charles will see the fall of his great pride." And this was by Ganelon, just stating how he's going to destroy the rear guard of his army and destroy Charlemagne's ego. And this next quote, "They have pledged their faith each to the other. They would do their utmost to kill Roland." And this is a narration of Blancantrin and Roland. It just shows that deception that they had planned and what they wanted to do. And the significance of all these stories and its theme, deception is used throughout all these stories, and it represents different things, like such as a spectrum. Whereas Much Ado About Nothing, it leads to romance, but also the deceit and destruction of a romance. And then in The Conference of the Birds, it leads to suffering, but shortly after that, love and romance. And then in The Song of Roland, it leads to war and death. And it just shows how deception is, how authors tie this in, this part of human nature, to cater to our wants and needs and to try to get what we want no matter what. And it just shows how the authors are able to utilize this in their stories to develop a sort of real aspect about their characters and add another layer and create relationships and develop them.